morning and welcome back to Ancaf. I'm Jason from Drop the Mask. This is a little casual live morning show where I drink coffee and walk through how I understand the world. Maybe it'll help some people, or maybe I'm wrong about something and you can help me. And I want to hear from you, so put your comments in the chat. I'll get to them during the stream, hopefully. Now, I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I won't back down. I won't hide behind that. I still think I'm right, but I'm always open to hear some people with more expertise when they disagree. Usually, when I disagree with someone, I can at least understand their point of view. It's pretty rare that I can say 100% that whoever it is I disagree with gets everything wrong. Even someone like Bernie Sanders, who I fundamentally disagree with on many things, but he doesn't get it all wrong. He does identify some real problems and very occasionally points at the right cause. And even though Bernie may have sold out to the Democratic Party, he was, or seemed to be, coming at it honestly. And when someone is making no sense, that's a sign that they're either not worth your time or they're not being honest, and they should be destroyed for it. Rhetorically, of course, not violently. Last time, I played some clips of Eric Weinstein. He was brought on to Piers Morgan Uncensored, I think to talk some sense into Dave Smith, as in politely scold him for being friends with Daryl Cooper, and it doesn't really matter what you think of either of those two people. I'm not here to defend them, although, as I've said, I do think Douglas Murray embarrassed himself on the biggest platform in the country. Even if he was right about any of his points when he finally got to them, he just screwed it up at the beginning. I am not an expert on the whole situation in Israel, but I will say, if Dave is such a non-expert, get in there and smash him on the substance. Don't whine about having to share the air with him. That opening hour of the discussion was just such an embarrassment. By the way, did you guys see Joe mocking Murray about it with Tim Dillon? You've never been. it was really funny. So, yeah, Murray heard his case, any case that he was trying to make about the actual issue. Anyway, I'm really not trying to get back into that again, but I mentioned last time that I would come back to this. Eric Weinstein, who I have a lot of respect for, he is someone worth listening to, in my opinion. I don't always agree, but he will make you think. My only real gripe with him is that he seems to cling to the old institutions more than I care for. He could be right. I'll leave that open for debate, or it could just be a preference that he has. But to me, there's a difference between respecting the things that are foundational to society and holding reverence for something that's completely corrupted. And I know he knows that they're corrupt. That's not what I'm trying to say. Just that I sense that he feels they can be redeemed, and I'm not so sure. Anyway, he was talking to Dave and Piers about the idea that World War II has adopted kind of a religious zealotry in a similar way that people don't fully get into the details of their faith and they don't understand the deeper meanings. They just know that Jesus is good. And then in World War II, Hitler is bad. And okay, that's a good start, sure, but basing your understanding on that limited level of analysis of each of those groups, people will extrapolate a whole lot of garbage that isn't in there. And that extrapolation of information is what I wanted to talk about today. So I'm going to play that one clip again, and then I will get into it.
Partially, it's not really a religion, and I talked to Dave about this morning privately. There's a French philosopher, I think his name is Renan, whose great quote is, "A nation is a group of people who have agreed to forget something in common." Unfortunately, we have a very simplistic notion at the moment that because we've been lied to by these elites, and boy, is that clear over the last several years, we are now deciding that we're going to pick at everything that might be a fiction, everything that might not be exactly true. And by the way, we have a new problem with X, which was formerly Twitter, which is that you cannot walk a foot in it without, being covered in anti-Semitic leeches if your last name sounds like mine. And Dave, I've understood the same thing has been happening to you. We are not finding the formula for a good life. It's not coming about by censorship. It's not coming about by false expertise, and it's not coming about by an anonymous free-for-all where everybody is sharing everything at an equal level, and we have no ability to discern what's going on, and it's not being settled through debate or combat, David. I agree with you on that.
Yeah, so that part at the end there, that's really what I'm interested in here. He says that we're not finding the formula for a good life, which is a very intriguing statement. He says that we're not coming closer to truth by censorship, of course. I'm going to guess that all of you watching are already on board with this. We don't want any person or body of people deciding what truth is and what it isn't, because it should be very obvious how that goes wrong. See the COVID-19 pandemic if you need an example. It's not, so the truth is also not coming by false expertise. And I wonder what exactly he means by this. What is an expert and what is a false expert? I would hazard a guess that it's people who claim to be experts but don't really know what they're talking about. But what gets you to true expertise? Because the world's best experts often disagree with each other. And I know, Eric knows, that the institutional experts are full of shit very often. So we don't really get truth that way. Truth isn't coming through a free-for-all in dialogue on the internet. Here's where, as a libertarian or anarchist, I should be having a problem with this. I do believe in free markets, and of course, I don't advocate for censorship of any kind. And I will say, despite all the advances in technology that are allowing us to get rid of the old guard, the gatekeepers that are the legacy media and their government handlers, or is it the other way around? I don't know, hard to say for sure, but even as we approach a more free market of ideas, I don't think that is necessarily getting us closer to truth. And this next clip was several months, maybe a year ago, but I was happy to hear Michael Malice coming to a similar conclusion when he talked to Dave Smith. I used this episode in one of my episodes, I think episode 5, a long, long time ago. But anyway, let's see it.
I've taken this detour in the last year or so where this whole enlightenment idea that if you sit down and have this free marketplace of ideas, people will approach truth is something I find increasingly not only wrong, but absurd.
Yeah.
And the idea that human beings are both status-seeking animals and narrative-seeking animals. And if we were seeking for truth, as more and more information was freely available, as certainly has happened in the last 30, 40 years, we would have reached more of a consensus because truth is one thing. It's the recognition of that which is real.
See it. Yeah, so what he says there is right. And by the way, me sharing a clip of Michael Malice agreeing with me is textbook social proof. I'm not hiding anything here. I'm using it to show that smart people agree with me, hoping that you'll think I'm smart by association. But also, because he just has a good way of explaining things, and it's good to break up the flow of just me talking so I can keep people's attention. So yeah, the idea that if we just have an open dialogue, that will get us the best outcome as far as people understanding the truth is not really playing out. Again, I know we don't have a fully free market, and I still prefer a free market, even in the idea space, because the free-for-all method where everyone's ideas are equally valid and deserving of attention just isn't great, but I still worry more for what happens when someone has power over what can be heard. But there are a lot of problems with trying to convince people of anything. I mentioned last time that people like a clean story. When it's simple to understand, they don't ask too many questions. Not everyone can handle going through existential questions or historical nuance, and almost no one has the time anyway. So we all look for shortcuts, and it's perfectly understandable that people are drawn to these overly simplistic, black and white narratives that they can base their worldview on. It's natural. I'm really not trying to disparage anyone for that. I'm not. I myself, I'm trusting the people who make sense to me, but I'm always open to a counter argument, because problems with this shortcutting happen when people who are not trying to do good recognize that human flaw and use it to their advantage. They manipulate public opinion to their twisted ends. For example, starting endless wars around the world in order to enrich a small pocket of people who are on the take from weapons manufacturers. Toward that end, we have so much propaganda. Everything from the hyper-nationalism on the right to middle-of-the-road patriotism to painting world leaders as evil dictators, whether or not they really are. All of those things are hijacked to promote more war. And you've heard the saying that war is the health of the state. It's all a way to increase power and wealth for a select few. And the people arguing in favor of what Israel is doing right now are pushing for some really horrific ends. So to get back to the original point, we're not finding truth through a free-for-all in discourse. We do listen to the experts, but of course, experts disagree. Experts are also prone to corruption. We do hear the news, and journalists do perform a service to the extent that they're being honest, but of course, they're human. And eventually, people will corrupt those systems too. And even if they're trying to be honest, they're not going to get a lot of things right, just based on how our brains work. We can listen to podcasts, we can learn things from those, but again, recognizing that these humans are capable of getting things wrong too. So it all really comes down to kind of a sad conclusion that truth is rare, and we may never know the full truth, enough to the point where we could be completely sure about historical events or even things that are happening right now as we speak. And at some point, you just have to live your life, right? If you spend your entire life digging for truth, you'll just end up in a lonely hole. So maybe truth isn't exactly the end goal we should be aiming for. I don't want people to misunderstand that. I didn't say truth is not important, and certainly if you can find it, it's worthwhile. But I'm saying that very often we have to, and we do, settle for true enough or directionally accurate. And I don't think that's something that we can change for the most part. So what do? Well, someone in isolation believing something incorrect about the Holocaust, for example, that doesn't really cause anyone any problems. That person's just wrong and dumb. They're free to be that. Shutting down their ability to speak is only going to exacerbate the problem. It's going to make people question why you don't want them talking, because maybe they're speaking too much truth. Not saying they are, but that's the perception that people will take from it. So, no, the problems come when a big enough group of those people have the ability to take control over your life. In other words, democracy. And this is one of the many reasons I call myself an anarchist. America, as a democratic nation, has become one of the biggest bullies in the world, and they rely on people continuing to support it. The worst people will always find ways to manipulate public opinion and in the process legitimize their own power. All this to say, don't expect people to converge on truth as a whole. People converge on what works for them, what makes them feel good, whatever will keep them included in their social circles. And because people take those shortcuts to truth just naturally, the ideas that tend to win out are the ones that are designed to manipulate. And if you know that, the world makes a lot more sense. So that's it for today. Thanks for joining me. Let me check the chat here. Anybody? No, nothing here. Okay. All right. Take care, everybody. Have a great week. I will see you next time on Anarcho-Caffeinated.
Come, family. Sit in the snow with Daddy and let us all bask in television's warm, glowing, warming glow.
Everything is going to be fine.